It is not news that sometimes events occur that require rules in several sports to change. Sports are almost constantly evolving, and that's fine. A young basketball player who by most projections will be selected first overall in the 2023 NBA draft might have already started altering the rules of the league. What are the most significant rule changes ever in the NBA? Watch this video to the end for details and answers. What are 5 of the most significant NBA rule changes ever? Like any sport, basketball has its flaws. In fact, the NBA is continually undergoing minor adjustments to improve the game as a whole. While many recent changes have had only minor effects, other significant ones have helped to shape the league that we all know and love today. Every generation sees changes in the NBA, whether it be in the types of players joining the league or the commissioner's policies. More precisely, adjustments are made in the NBA since the league's regulations frequently alter over time to lessen the effects of incredibly dominant players or to boost viewership. The NBA has likely altered for the foreseeable future as a result of certain stringent rule adjustments that we have already seen in action. Early on, rules started to lessen the impact of dominant big guys since it was too simple for them to play the game. Later, talented guards and forwards were given the freedom to express themselves in order to highlight offense. Nowadays, the game is primarily offense-focused. Now, we are going to analyze the largest rule modifications the NBA has ever seen, not only by describing when and how they transpired, but also by comprehending the reasons behind the moves and how they will affect players and the league in the long run. Let's get on with the list. First on the list, we have the banning of basket interference. Anyone who has seen basketball is aware that goaltending is not permitted, either on offense or defense. Defensive goaltending was outlawed by the league in 1944, but offensive goaltending, often known as basket interference, was not prohibited until 1956. Wilt Chamberlain, who earned a fortune by merely tapping in jumpers that went over the rim, is largely responsible for this development. Big guys found scoring to be much simpler as a result, and certain offense setups were entirely altered as a result. Because the league believed interference made some plays too simple and gave bigger players a clear edge, they ultimately decided to ban it. Fewer rebounds were produced as a result, which eliminated a crucial aspect of the game. The banning and unbanning of zone defense comes second on this list. Any seasoned basketball fan is aware that NBA teams almost never use a zone defense, and when they do, it's almost always a 2-3. Teams often prefer to play man defense, and the defensive 3-second rule makes running the zone challenging. That was intentionally done. One of the first rule changes in basketball was the outlawing of zone defense, which had a significant impact on how the game was played. The technique was outlawed by the Basketball Association of America, or BAA, in 1947 as a means of encouraging teams to play more aggressively. Although many fans first disliked the change, it has improved game speed, defense, scoring, and viewing quality overall. When the BAA and the National Basketball Association joined to establish the NBA in 1949, they opted to retain the rule in place for this reason. The zone defense was eventually allowed in the NBA in the 2001 season. The defensive 3-second limit and increased emphasis on long-range shooting, though, mean that teams hardly ever leave man-to-man defense until absolutely necessary. Third on the list is the implementation of a wider free throw lane. The enlargement of the free throw line from 12 to 16 feet, according to many basketball historians, is another rule Wilt Chamberlain is credited for establishing. In the past, guards faced a significant problem. Simply put, they were unable to compete with powerful centers. The majority of big players would take a seat on the block, collect the ball directly underneath the hoop, and then pivot or spin for a simple layup. George Mikan, who absolutely dominated down low due to his size, was the first to cause that problem. In 1952, the NBA was compelled by his weight and influence to increase the width of the lane from 6 to 12 feet. That, however, only held true for a total of 12 years. In order to prevent Wilt from scoring too frequently, the league again expanded it in 1964, making it 16 feet wide. Even though this rule modification was small, it had a significant effect. It altered the way big men played the game and gave outside players much more scoring opportunities. The first 6 to 12 feet change was made in order to reduce George Mikan's unrelenting domination. The goal was to give the wings more strength and skill so they could better defend imposing centers and exert a little more paint control. Extending the lane started to slow down Mikan and other big players who were consistently controlling the paint. The implementation and evolution of the three-point line comes fourth on the list. The three-point line revolutionized the game after hand-checking was scrutinized to the point where it was practically outlawed. Gifted shooters like Larry Bird, Reggie Miller, Steve Kerr, and most recently Ray Allen and Stephen Curry were given the opportunity to excel at what they do best thanks to this rule. The NBA's simple objectives were to promote more offense and speed up play to accommodate some of the greatest players in history who were active at the time. Without this regulation modification, high-octane offenses and Stephen Curry's transformation of the NBA are unlikely to exist. It would be difficult to discover a change that had a greater influence on the NBA's evolution than the adoption of the three-point line. scoring. That one adjustment, which occurred during the 79-80 season, not only increased scoring significantly, but also laid the groundwork for the NBA we know today. All modern teams place a tremendous amount of emphasis on three-point shooting, yet such offenses were not feasible in the 1950s, 1960s, and 1970s. No matter how far away you shot a basket before, you only received 2 points. Teams were not designed for outside attacks in the way that they are now, which may seem absurd to some given how important the three-point shot has become. Last on this list is the implementation of the shot clock. The league was aware that a significant adjustment was required since players like George Mikan were dominating the paint and taking their time to release shots. Teams were too slow to enter their offensive setups, and there were instances when a lack of urgency slowed down the game's tempo. A very important addition was made when the NBA intervened. The game was altered by the shot clock since it sped up play and encouraged teams to set up shots and score more points. The results were astounding because the league point per game average increased from 79.4 ppg to 93.1 ppg as a result of the rule modification. That astonishing change proves that sportsmen need to experience a little pressure in order for games to be more alluring. No modification in NBA history has improved the game more than the addition of the shot clock, notwithstanding how significant the three-point line has become. Back then, games used to drag on and be boring since teams could simply keep the ball for as long as they wanted. In fact, in certain low-scoring contests, like the Lakers versus the Pistons game in 1950, neither team scored 20 points. To correct this, the NBA instituted the shot clock in 1954, which accelerated play and produced more entertaining games that concentrated on scoring. Basketball would not have reached its current levels if not for that one alteration. Next up, could the #1 prospect Victor Wembanyama already be changing NBA rules? Adam Silver, the commissioner of the NBA, recently discussed ways to prevent teams from deliberately underperforming in order to improve their chances of picking a once-in-a-generation player like Victor Wembanyama. Wembanyama, 18, is already making an impact on the league without even having played a single game. The 60-year-old Silver called tanking a severe issue and asserted that hundreds of discussions had been held to come up with a fix. The commissioner said that relegation might be a way to guarantee that the franchises with the lowest records compete to the end of each season. Silver swiftly reversed course, claiming that G League clubs lacked the necessary skills to be elevated to the NBA and that relegation would upset the league's business model. The NBA changes its regulations every year, but some players have changed them because they hacked the game. The majority of basketball's regulations today were created by Wilt Chamberlain, and each modification was intended to counteract his utter domination. James Harden would frequently lunge into his opponent while shooting to get to the free throw line, which led to one of the most recent rule modifications. Due to his excessive offensive advantage, Kobe Bryant is frequently held accountable for the NBA's decision to outlaw hand-checking. When a talent like Wembanyama becomes available, Silver will find a way to keep the league competitive even if relegation doesn't occur. Are there any changes you think still need to be made in the NBA rules? What do you think of the idea of introducing relegation to the NBA? What other topic do you want to see featured on this channel? Let us know in the comment section. Please like and subscribe. Thank you for watching.